Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia here. Welcome back to the Overwatch Transfer Roundup. So, we have got a lot to get to. We have been missing a transfer roundup for a little while because of the Christmas and New Year period, but we have got a lot of transfers to get through, including the Overwatch League, including Contenders and other regions. So, let's, without further ado, get to it. And we start off with a retirement. This is Flippy, the French DPS player. He was most recently playing for Nocturnal Essence, but he's also had times at one point Young and Beautiful, British Hurricane, Copenhagen Flames, and Eagle Gaming, well known throughout the Contenders EU scene, and he has retired now. He will no longer be taking part in competitive pro Overwatch. Moving on, we have Everkey, who was a media manager for the Chengdu Hunters, but he is a media manager no longer. Everkey is no longer with Chengdu. Then we have another French DPS player. This is Zik, who will now be playing for Third Impact in NA Contenders. Zik is another French player that has had a lot of time in EU Contenders with Eagle Gaming, Red, HSL Esports, and one point he will be moving to America to play for Third Impact. So, moving on, and we come to the Overwatch League, and this is where it gets mighty interesting. So we've had the 4 last signings for the London Spitfire to round out their 12-man roster. Problem is, these signings, not a lot of people know anything about. So it's 2 DPS players, Babel and Aldo, and then 2 tank players, Jihan and Celestin. This is some interesting stuff. They are all Korean and have all either come from the ladder or open division or contenders in Korea. Babel is a hit scan DPS, he's 18 and he has come from BM Hawk. Although has come from Gen S. Now you might remember me talking about the Gens. Obviously Gen G. Gen G is the Academy of Seoul Dynasty. Gen G has some academies as well. They also got Sanguinar from one of those academies. There is Gen A, there is Gen B, and there is Gen S, I believe, going underneath Gen G. Although has come from Gen S, and he is a DPS, although, again, not much known about him. Then we have Jihan, who is actually a very good wrecking ball, but he's come from Bubble Burster Gaming. They are a team that did compete in Contenders China, but they were disbanded in September. And then we have Celestin, who is an off-tank player well known for his D.Va and Zarya. We know a bit more about Celestin because he did have time at Team Chengdu Panthera in 2019, early 2019, late 2018, and Team Griffin. So he's kind of known around the Contenders career scene, but he's not a massively... these aren't players that have been popping off and making names for themselves. So, yeah, interesting move from London. These are definitely not starting players. I think we saw the starting roster earlier on or later last year, I should say. These are definitely team players, I would say, but it's definitely a development move for London Spitfire. Very interesting. It's a very big gamble. I've talked about London Spitfire before, and we'll talk about them in not so far in the future because the roundups for each team will be coming soon. But yeah, big move, brave, and maybe the coaching staff at London Spitfire, the very good coaching staff at London Spitfire now, have an ace up their sleeve here, but it remains to be seen. Then we have the Chengdu Hunters, who have let go of Yang Xiao Long and Jikririn. This is basically getting rid of players they weren't massively using. With Chengdu Hunters, we kind of know who they like to run. They like to run Bacon Jack, they like to run Jinmu, they like to run Leave, and there really wasn't a place for Yang Xiao Long. And then we know the tanks that Chengdu are going to run. They have Late Young, they have Among, and they have Elsa, and that ain't going to change, so there's no place for Jikrin. So those are the moves at the Chengdu Hunters, but there are probably going to be signings coming into the Chengdu Hunters in the not so distant future, so keep an eye on that one. But let's start picking up the paces. So next up we have Zytor, who was a support player for Clockwork Vendetta. He has left Clockwork Vendetta and is now unassigned. Clockwork Vendetta again having a shake-up in the off-season. Carter, a DPS player, American DPS player, has signed for Third Impact. Another pickup for Third Impact in this video. Then we have JSR, who is moving from a head coach role at Montreal Rebellion to a head coach role at Revival. Also Revival have signed up Ryu for an assistant coach role. He is from Lithuania. Then we have an interesting one. Now, do you remember Guard? Guard was a DPS player, Sombra specialist for London Spitfire last season. He has announced his retirement. I believe it is to fulfill his military service in Korea, I think. But we will not be seeing Guard in the competitive Overwatch scene for a little while he sorts things out. I hope he comes back at some point. Then we have Flora, who was a DPS for O2 Blast in Contenders Korea. He has left O2 Blast, but then O2 Blast have moved a bunch of players in, so we have, and a coach actually, so we have Boot EUK, I'm not sure how you say that. He is coming in as a coach for O2 Blast. They have also signed 2 supports, Finn and Neko. You might recognise Neko. Neko used to play for the Toronto Defiant and the Boston Uprising. Then we have 2 tanks coming in for O2 Blast. It's Kalios, who you might remember from the inaugural season of the Overwatch League, who played for Boston Uprising. He has also had time at Skyfoxes, Team Griffin and Third Impact. And they have also brought in Yakpung, who you will remember also from the Toronto Defiant last year, and he's also been O2 Blast before. So a lot of signings coming in at O2 Blast to replace some outgoing players. Then we have a movement at Element Mystique. They have moved out Takoyaki, their tank player. He is now unassigned. Then we have some movements at LGD Gaming. Now this is very interesting because LGD Gaming have actually announced that their Overwatch division is suspended. So they have basically released pretty much their entire roster. So that's the support Secret, the 2 tank players, Rookie and Tankui. Then the DPS players, Kan Iki and Wan Li. Their coach, Eagle, and their manager, Bei Bao. This is obviously disappointing news to hear another team that has either disbanded or will not be competing in Contenders. But it's what's happening at the moment. It seems like it's happening, on a weekly basis. We're seeing another team kind of bite the dust. It's very, very disappointing to see. But hopefully things will turn around in the near future. But onto a lighter note, and there's been 4 signings at Lucky Future. Lucky Future have signed Sky and Rookie, 2 DPS players, Pumple, the tank player, and Agatha, the support player, all Korean, who will be competing in Contenders China for the upcoming season. Then we have a movement at the Fusion University. Fusion University have decided to offload their tank player Chang Sik, and I would imagine they will find a replacement for him pretty soon. Then we have another retirement. This is the French tank player Super Pluke. Most notably, he was recently with the Angry Titans. Angry Titans have overhauled their roster. We'll be getting onto them in a minute. He also was with the Eternal Academy, which was the academy team of the Paris Eternal. But he's had a very storied history in European Contenders and across esports in Overwatch, going back to 2016. But he is now retired at the age of 25, and we wish him all the best for the future. Moving on, and we have a coaching change at Triumph. They have let go of their coach, Milo. Also, we now go back to O2 Blast, but this time it is for the O2 Blast Academy. They have announced an entire roster. So, we have 2 coaches coming in, Wavy and Order. Then we have 2 supports, All Watch and Emergency. 2 tanks, Kane and Bello Serra. Then we have 3 DPS players, Finale, Becky and Arch. And then we have them signing a player who was already signed to Far East Society, and this is Aros, another support player. He is moving to the O2 Academy. Then we have another retirement. This is the Austrian player Eclipse. He was most recently with Second Generation and also Novus Audio Cyclorum. So we wish him all the best in the future. Now we have a very familiar name popping up. Remember Flower? We used to pop off for the South Korean Overwatch World Cup team, then went to the New York Excelsior, well, the XL2 Academy first, and then New York Excelsior last season. Didn't do too much for the New York Excelsior. Then he found himself out of the New York Excelsior, but he's found himself a new home, and that is with Flowervin and Runner at Runaway. Flower will be the DPS player for Runaway next season. It's interesting to see that some of these more high-profile South Korean teams, like Runaway, like Element Mystique, like O2 Blast, they seem to be going for more historied players, should we say? Players that perhaps have been in Overwatch League before instead of going for more unknown players. I think that's because they're fed up of losing their rosters, personally, but we will see what happens in the future. Then we have another casualty of the current state of Contenders and stuff like that, and that is Nariki Frost. They are a Finnish Contenders team. They have released their entire roster, so that's their 2 DPS, Korea and Cloud, their 2 supports, Snappy and Baruts, and then we have their tank players, Floss and Seni. They have all been released. So, moving on and back to the Overwatch League, Houston Outlaws have made a signing. This is the South Korean support player, Jekse. So, you might remember him from the Seoul Dynasty and previously before Seoul Dynasty, Element Mystique. Another really good signing for the Houston Outlaws. Houston Outlaws are going to be a team to definitely watch this coming Overwatch League season because they have made some very, very good signings in this off-season and they really have improved. And now with the more stable backing they've got as well, definitely a team to keep an eye on and definitely not take for granted because they have got some very good talent in that roster now. And they are a team that could cause some upsets. So, moving on, and we have HTP, who is a support, or Korean support. He was at Triumph as a substitute. He is now unassigned, leaving Triumph. Then we have Cameron, the British or Scottish tank player, main tank player. He has moved to the Maryville esports team. You might recognise them from the Mayhem Winter Classic video that I put out a couple of days ago. They will be competing in that over this weekend. Then we have Crusade. Crusade is a Dutch support player. He stood in for Skyfoxes during the Breakable Barriers tournament. He is now officially signed by Skyfoxes. They did need a support player and they've got Crusade to fill that role ahead of the Mayhem Winter Classic. Then we have 2 retirements. This is Zappis starting off. Zappis, obviously, he's been in every single Overwatch World Cup with Team Finland. He's been around the Overwatch esports scene for, well, since basically it started out with SG1, Ninjas in Pyjamas, Rest in Pyjamas, Team Giganti, Florida Mayhem, and then back to Team Giganti again. Obviously, Team Giganti don't exist anymore. He's now 30 years old and he wants to go back to pursue his education, I believe. I really hope he does well. Zappis has been a real staple of the entire Overwatch scene, so I wish him all the best for the future. And also, talking of staples of the Overwatch, especially EU scene, it is Manhattan as well. Another person you often seen at Overwatch World Cups with Sweden. He was obviously with the Mayhem during their inaugural season. It didn't all go that well, but he's been with Luminosity as well, Misfits, and Revival most recently. He has announced his retirement at the age of 22, and it is another great loss for the Overwatch esports team scene, but I wish him all the best in the future. And my voice is going, so I need to end this video pretty quickly because we're on to our last team now. I told you there was a big change at the Angry Titans and they have announced their roster for the up and coming season of Contenders. This roster consists of 2 DPS players, Naga and Hybrid, 2 support players, Dollar and Epps, and then 2 British tank players, Morsi and White Noise. Angry Titans are geared up for the Contenders season coming up, and I wish them all the best. But that rounds us out for our transfer roundup for today. I will be back very soon with another one, no doubt, because there's going to be plenty of stuff going on. Stay tuned on the channel for a bunch more esports stuff coming up, for the roundups for every single team, all 20 of them going into the Overwatch League season, which will be starting very soon, because we are nearly exactly a month away from the kickoff of OWL 2020, and boy is it going to be a big season. And also, just to round this video off with something very interesting, there has been a casting change at the Overwatch League. There are 2 new casters. It's Brennan's Sideshow. I believe they are now becoming casters for the Overwatch League full-time instead of analysts, and I wish them all the best. And let's see if they get any work done, because goodness me, they were a pain in the backside on the desk, and we'll see if they can actually cast. I meme, seriously. They're good casters, and I wish them all the best in the coming Overwatch League season. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.